Hi, this is Christopher Smith, publisher of the American Cannabis Report, and I'm proud to bring you today Arnaud Dumas de Rauly. He's the CEO of the Blinc Group. I hope I haven't pronounced his name too badly. And Seth Dean, sales manager for the Blinc Group. Hi, guys. Welcome. Arnaud, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and tell me about your role at Blinc. And by the way, since you're the boss, how about if you also give just a good summary of Blinc?
Sure, will do. Hi everyone. My name's Arnaud Dumas de Rauly. Thank you very much for having me on this podcast. This is great, and I'm very happy that Seth is joining us as well. Quick intro about me. I am the co-founder and CEO of the Blinc Group. We've been around since 2017, and I'm also chairman of the ISO standards on vaping products, as well as chairman of the European Commission standards on vaping products. As you can see by my name, I am French, but don't worry, I will not bore you with this accent during my entire speech. We decided actually to create the Blinc Group to address a couple of issues that we had seen in the past with vaping products. Basically, having been in the vaping industry since 2009, we had a lot of people come up to us and show us these products saying, hey, what's this? What do you think? You're a vaping expert. And I was just looking at them at first and it was weird. I was like, oh, okay. So cannabis is oil, it's lipid based. Why are you guys using a technology that we had developed 10 years ago for nicotine vaping that's water based? The two don't work well together. So basically what we've done throughout the years is develop the mathematical model of vaporization and apply it to lipids. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play in there. The main one being viscosity and degradants. We decided to create a whole line of products using that mathematical model and really being able to use science and data to get these products out there. That said, one of the main aspects of what we do is really controlling the whole supply chain. I think we're the only company today that has that end-to-end control. We work with China, of course, because right now that's the only place these products can be manufactured. And we literally go to a contract manufacturer and tell him, I want this product, and you're going to work with this list of 13 raw material suppliers that we have selected and that we audit every 6 months to make sure the product quality is consistent and the materials that we use are consistent. Not only that, but we also look at the materials themselves and have 30 to 60 pages of reports on like Title 21 CFR, Title 21 CPG, GRAS reports on every single one of the materials that we use that really helps our clients with compliance, that helps them in doing failure mode analysis on any kind of products that they're using inside of our hardware. And finally, really the third big aspect of what we do is that consultative approach and that consultative sale. We don't have products on the shelf that people can just say, I want 1,000 of these on. We actually tailor our products to our clients' needs, not only through customizations, but also through functionality. And I think that really makes up the core of what Blinc is. We manufacture vaping hardware that is tailored to our clients' needs, whether they're MSOs, LPs, producer processors, or brands.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Seth Dean, if you don't mind me just asking real quick about you as well. So you are a sales manager, and I'm guessing that means that you are very customer facing and that you deal directly with customers and their needs and also probably get a lot of feedback. Can you tell me what you're hearing in the industry?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm the sales manager for the Blinc Group. I am very, very customer facing, and me and my team make sure that we do everything we can to take care of the customers and to take into account their feedback that we do get. Recently, we've been getting a lot of feedback that a lot of these producer processors are getting into rosin and solventless hash oil. And because of that, we developed the X Pro V12 OG, which is our rosin specific cartridge. Yeah, so we were just constantly, keeping our ear to the ground and seeing what new trends are in the industry. And of course, rosin and solventless hash oil is definitely what is on the rise right now.
Okay. Arnaud, I try to find this out about everyone I interview. It seems that people who get into our industry, in the cannabis industry, always have an interesting backstory about how they actually happened into the industry. Can you tell me, Arnaud, about how you got into cannabis? I don't think that's where you started.
No, definitely. So I was actually on a trip in China in 2009. I owned a consulting firm at the time, and I was there to place one of my consultants, and ran into a friend of mine who had an electronic cigarette, and I used to smoke at that time, and he gave me one. From that day on, I did not smoke a single cigarette. And so really got into, at first it was a business decision. When I came back, I lived in France, in Paris at the time. When I came back, I went to see two of my friends I played rugby with, and we were trying to figure out a business we could build together, and we created Ego Cigarette. It really went up in 2 years. We were the biggest CPG manufacturer of nicotine vaping products for France. And throughout that entire process, I really became enamored with the harm reduction side of things. I'm an engineer as a background, and really am knee deep into understanding how vaping is harm reduction versus smoking. I've gotten numerous friends, family members, personalities off nicotine with vaping products, and I truly believe they are the best way to use harm reduction. I used to say this all the time when I was really representing the nicotine vaping industry. If you have 400,000 people that die of tobacco-related diseases every year, and in the end, you only have 20,000 that die of vaping diseases, isn't that a win? I'm sorry to say, but it is. It's still a huge win. That said, I'm preempting this as well with the fact that we've never heard of anyone die of vaping products until we hearing about the Rauly crisis back in 2019. And we quickly realized that these products were from the illegal market that weren't tested and that were cut with vitamin E acetate. So really the harm reduction aspect is great. You have people with COPD, you have people that just cannot be inhaling smoke. Cannabis is a holistic health and wellness, but also a medical product. That's also why we're having a hard time getting a lot of the doctors to recommend cannabis, because they don't want to recommend someone putting something that combusts in their lungs. And really the combustion is key, because whether it's normal smoking or vaping, the two factors that are the most important are the degradants and the toxicants that come out of these products. When you're smoking it and there's combustion, you have way more degradants that come out than when it's vaping. That said, there are some bad vaping products on the market that will hit that combustion point and that will produce those byproducts and those degradants. But overall, if we're staying within the correct ranges and the manufacturer recommended ranges, we're looking at something that's 10 to 20 times less dangerous than smoking.
And when you're talking about those ranges, you're talking about ranges of temperature?
Exactly, it's ranges of temperature. So if we reel it back a little bit, in nicotine vaping, there's 4 ingredients: propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, nicotine, and flavorings. In cannabis, there is a lot more than that. In fact, as an industry, we still don't even know what all the ingredients are in there. What we do know is that some of these ingredients, if they're heated to certain temperatures, produce bad byproducts. And I think this is endemic to our industry and even more to our country here in the US, that people are afraid of liability. So none of these producer processors want to actually go in and find out what's producing these kind of degradants, because if they do, and there's something like in tobacco, the master settlement agreement in 20 years around cannabis, they're going to be liable during the discovery process. People are going to say, hey, look, you identified this 20 years ago, you didn't do anything about it. So as a company that's in the ancillary business, we do not produce the oil, we do not touch the plant. I think it's also our role to do a lot of education on that and to spend some time doing research.
I'm really glad that you covered the crisis in 2019, I believe it was, about the vitamin E acetate. I think that anyone who thinks about vapes, of course, remembers that clearly. And, it's sort of in the back of your mind, like trying to understand what happened. And also, I think people are kind of curious if they remember reading the story. It really only happened here in the United States, right?
Exactly. I think.
And
so.
why was that?
The backstory around this product is I don't think these people producing products on the illicit market have really bad intentions. They just want to make a bigger profit, and they wanted to use a product that could be that could help them sell more. So create more quantities of product using additives. Vitamin E acetate is a product that has been approved for ingestion. Why? Because you have enzymes in your body, in your stomach, that will break down everything that your body can't assimilate. It's been approved for topicals. Why? Because you have all those levels of your derm that can filter out what your body cannot absorb.
Sure.
When you're vaping it, there's nothing in your lungs. The alveolus don't have any mechanism to take anything out. That's why we start coughing immediately when there's smoke or there's a fire or anything. So it's really about these people thinking, all right, well, this is approved for food, this is approved for topicals, so it must be good for vaping. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and I think that was kind of the alarm bell going off. Guys, we can't do anything with these products. We got to stop making them in our garage. We got to stop making assumptions that since they're approved for food, that they're great for inhalation, and we need to start thinking about what I call, and what a group of my colleagues back in France call vapology grade products and ingredients, because that's a whole different story. Depending on the size, remember, these are lipids, it's oil. Depending on the size of the particles that go into your lungs, they can clog up your alveolus. And that's when you start getting all of these issues we've seen with the Rauly. So it's really important to do that research up front. And I think the snake bites its tail conundrum of the American market is that it's almost a free market compared to any other country in the world. You can literally do what you want, sell it, which is great for innovation. But on the other hand, when you look at what people are putting in their bodies in terms of drugs and medicine, people have to go through clinical trials, and it takes 3 to 5 years to put a product on the market. So I think there's a good balance to find in between those two to get to a safe product. We are still talking about, again, products we are putting in our bodies. So why does the medical industry have to do 5 years of clinical research, and why can we make it in our garage and sell it tomorrow?
That's a pretty interesting conversation to have. It would take us a while to get to the bottom of it, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Seth, if you don't mind, if I'll just change gears a little bit. Seth, the same question that I asked Arnaud in the beginning, I'm always curious, again, how people got into the industry. And I'm reading your background on the website, and I understand that you've moved full-time to Colorado. So tell me a little bit about why you're in the cannabis industry, and why you're not doing anything else, why you're not in the skiing industry or something else. Why are you here?
Yeah, so, started my career early on managing a lot of nightclubs and restaurants and bars in 6th Street in Austin, Texas. So after that kind of got a little bit old, me and my wife, basically, we'd always been cannabis consumers, very big cannabis advocates, for several reasons. We've seen it change people's life from a medical standpoint. Her dad had had a pretty bad bout with cancer, where we wish we would have had access to medical cannabis, but unfortunately, due to Texas laws and due to him being a veteran and all of his insurance being through the VA, he would have lost all of his benefits if he would have even attempted to try that medicine. So it was a very, very eye-opening situation that we were in. And from that point, we were looking for a career change and kind of a lifestyle change. And that's when we made the decision that we were going to dedicate our lives to cannabis. From that point, we went out to California for a while, ran a small co-op out there back in the days when it was still kind of the Wild West of the cannabis industry out in California. Did that for a while. And after that, ended up coming out to Colorado, starting an analytics company where we went in and audited facilities for compliance, for customer service, things like that. And after that, we ended up selling that company a while back and got into the vape side of things. The reason that I was so passionate about this side of things is kind of, touches on some of the reasons why Arnaud's passionate about it. It's, it's not combustion. It's a much safer delivery method. And, this is a medical product. And for people, like my wife's late father, who, had some issues with that, a vape might have been a better delivery method and might have been able to get him some of this medicine that I feel like might have benefited him during that time. So to me, it's been a lifestyle of mine for a long time, and I've loved the cannabis industry and everything about it, since my teen years. But it was also definitely from a compassion standpoint and from a medical access standpoint that really, got me involved on such a deep level. And so both myself and my wife have been in the cannabis industry ever since. I think that was 12, 13 years ago. So we've been doing it for quite a while now.
That's really great. It's great to hear about the balance that you have there at the Blinc Group, the balance of technology and standards. And then underlying all of that is the personal experience and the passion that goes into it. There, people who literally wake up every day excited about what they're doing and that they're really bringing something really important from the most personal place. I mean, it couldn't be more important, really, especially for a company, struggling with great competition and everything. It seems like it's a great advantage for you guys. Yeah,
it's a huge thing for me to, there's jobs and then there's careers. They've told us our whole time growing up, and I think it really, to me, this is where the rubber kind of met the road with that phrase is, this isn't just a job. This isn't just a paycheck. This is something that I truly believe in and that I have devoted my entire life to. And because of that, it's not so much like work every day when we go to the office. So it's really great to be a part of this community and to see the change that's happening because of this industry.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm in California myself, and we really admire what's going on in Colorado. And maybe Arnaud, if I could maybe transition back to you, because I know you're the man who deals with standards and quality issues. The way that these things are handled in Colorado seems to be much more focused, much more cogent. Is that obviously that makes a big difference to you in terms of product safety and in terms of the being able to replicate what you do over and over at the highest standards?
Yeah, I think Colorado is definitely doing things the right way. When you're trying to regulate a nascent industry, and again, I've been through this in nicotine vaping. Colorado is doing it the right way because they're involving what we call the trifecta when we create standards. In the ISO world, we need key stakeholders, so industry, we need regulators, and we need the consumers. And those three are brought together by the Science and Policy Committee that the MED and CDPHE have put together. And literally the roadmap of what needs to be done for consumer safety, but also to allow businesses to thrive is handled within that committee. And I think it's really a great way to approach regulation. It's a great way to approach building consensus. As chairman of ISO, my main role during that committee is to build consensus between the different countries and their different standards. It's really a hard job without trying to take one side or the other. And Colorado has been doing a great job at that. I just wish more states could be doing that, as opposed to California, where literally it's politicians doing the work, and who don't know anything about this. And a state like New York, where we're headquartered in, is really just the big companies, the big cannabis companies that have 5 or 6 lobbyists that can get their messages through. So there has to be this balance, and I think Colorado has met this balance, and that's why I think the entire world is literally looking at Colorado and the regulations that come out of Colorado as the gold standard. Sure, there can be better things that are done. Sure, there's this always continual improvement factor, but as of today, you're absolutely right. Colorado has done the best job, in my opinion, at least, on regulating these products.
Another big question that people have, this is a global question really, is, and especially coming out of COVID and coming out of this last sort of 2-year period that we've all suffered through, is supply chain, right? It's happening in, I mean, you can barely get a new car these days because of the chips and et cetera. This problem is really endemic. And I've got to imagine it's the same thing in your industry. Tell me how those things are affecting you and your industry, and tell me what you're doing to master the problem, if possible.
Oh, that's always a big balance. I think the COVID pandemic has brought attention to the fact that people were taking things for granted earlier. I remember when we first started, and we were telling people, "Hey, these products are going to get delivered in 11 days." They would arrive maybe in 12 days, and all hell would break loose. Today, right, if we tell them you're going to get it in 12 days, if it arrives 15 days, they'll understand. So I think it's alleviated some pressure on manufacturers, but it also points the finger at holes in people's processes. For business continuity, you have to have redundancy set up. And I mean, we even say this to a lot of clients, and Seth, please don't cringe when I say this. It's better to have 2 suppliers, so you have your supply chain redundant, than just put all of your eggs in the same basket and rely on one. That is how we have set up our entire supply chain. So instead of doing like our competition does and working with one manufacturer and have no visibility on the back end of the supply chain, the raw materials and everything, we decided to control that and have, as of today now, 6 different manufacturers, 6 different production lines. So we have built in that redundancy. A very clear example, last week, with their no COVID policy, China locked down Shenzhen. Our team, we have a team of 8 people that were stuck in their office and stuck at home, couldn't go to the office. What's more, our contract manufacturers, our production lines weren't running. And it was great to have 2 of those that were out of Shenzhen, because we could do limited runs and continue producing products. Not to mention that when we have that redundancy, it's not only with that production line, it's also with the raw material suppliers. So during the beginning of COVID, as an example, everyone was making ventilators, and China was a big part of that. And the government had mandated all of the producers of stainless steel to make exclusively for the medical industry. And only the bigger ones were allowed to use 20% of their production to do anything else. The fact that we had 2 of those bigger ones in our roster of raw material suppliers allowed us to ship products even a week after Chinese New Year during COVID. So it's, again, this is really general business continuity examples. You always need to be building redundancy, not only in your processes, but I hate to say this, also in people. I see this every day. My goal is to try and build redundancy with my role, is to make sure that anyone else can fill in and has the knowledge to do so and can do it. Yeah, I think redundancy is really part of our DNA and making sure that we're able to service as many clients as possible. And then there's the shipping and logistics. We have a shipping manager that does an excellent job of pre-booking flights and controlling, from a control tower perspective, all of our shipping. And to emphasize that, what we've also done is included 5G data trackers on all of our shipping. So at any time of the day, I can log into my system and see exactly where in the air, on the sea, our products have been, if they have been into any collisions, what the temperature was. And that allows us to provide better services to our clients, because when they're going to be receiving a shipment or a pallet of batteries, for instance, we can say, guys, receive it with caution, because we saw that at one point they were in 150 degrees for 2 hours on the tarmac, I don't know, in Hong Kong or something like that. So we're really able to track that down to that level of detail. And those are things that help us mitigate supply chain issues. We've also seen that, for instance, a couple of routes flying into Dulles, for instance, is often one of the routes that always has 2 or 3 days delay. By tracking that, we have been able to work with our shipping manager and ask her not to ship anything through Dulles anymore, because we consistently lose 2 days. So really, that level of detail and redundancy is super important.
Wow, that's incredible attention to detail, and it must make you incredibly efficient versus the competition, I guess, which is the whole game. So well done. I do have another question. I think it was Seth earlier mentioned rosin and the sort of the migration, perhaps. I don't know if we even want to call that, perhaps, or maybe just the sort of the rising up of people's preference for rosin instead of just, do we just say pure extract? And how you guys are addressing that in terms of your technology and how you're handling that change.
Yeah, so you see progressions through with these different types of oils. At first, when everything legalization happened and all these products came online, you saw a lot of distillate carts and distillate with maybe reintroduced terpenes or botanical terpenes, and that was kind of what the market was. And then from there, it went to live resin, and then now you've got this solventless hash oil or rosin. Rosin is a little bit more fragile of an oil. It does have some more terpenes in there that do degrade at lower temperatures, so it's a little bit more fragile than some of the other oils. And it is also a very, very viscous oil. It's a very thick oil. So those are two of the things that we had to take into account when trying to make a cartridge that was specifically for our rosin customers and our rosin clients. So the way we kind of mitigated that is with our rosin cartridge. Our typical cartridges, V12 cartridge, has 4 2.0 millimeter intake holes. And all the intake holes are the holes down at the bottom that allow the oil to come into the actual coil, which is where it's being vaporized. So our typical V12, like I said, has 4 2.0 millimeter intake holes. On our rosin cartridges, we increase that surface area up to 2.4 millimeters. So it has 4 2.4 millimeter intake holes. And what that does is that allows some of these more viscous oils a better capillary action, a better chance for that oil to flow down and meet that coil and saturate that coil so that you can actually vaporize it. What we found with some of the other cartridges that were on the market that were just kind of being tossed out and used for rosin was, they'll hit pretty good the first 1 or 2 times, but if you're sitting there, puffing on it, the 4th, 5th time, you may get a dry coil. And then once you get a dry coil, if you go to hit that coil and there's no oil in it, it actually burns that coil and the entire cartridge is ruined from that point. I equate it to kind of the flavor you get after lighting up a joint roach. It doesn't taste like that fresh joint that you lit at first. That's kind of what a burnt coil is. That whole card is going to taste burnt from now on. So to mitigate that, of course, we increase that surface area, allowing a better capillary action for that oil to get down to that coil and saturate it really, really quickly. So even if, you know, you're sitting there passing the pin back with a few friends, you're never going to get an empty coil and a burnt coil on that. Another thing that we did when I was speaking about the terpenes on rosin, and speaking about how those degrade at lower temperatures than some of the terpenes that you have in you know, distillate or live resin. What we did to mitigate that is we increased the resistance on our cart. Typical cartridges, you'll see about a 1.2 ohm resistance. With this cartridge, we increased it up to 1.6 ohm. And what that does is that resists the voltage from the battery, resulting in a lower wattage on the coil. So lower wattage means a lower temperature on the coil. Because with rosin, you want to be able to vaporize it and get a good vape production while still remaining at a very low temperature so you can preserve those terpenes. And with that resistance, we're able to achieve a lower temperature on the coil while still getting a very, very nice vape production. It's one of the best, you know, tasting vapes that are on the market right now. Of course, that's my personal opinion, but I've got a lot of feedback to back that up as well. I think that's mainly because of that increased surface area and that increased resistance on there, resulting in that lower temperature.
Well,
I'd like to add to this, and Seth is absolutely right in saying it's one of the better experiences. I think we can equate this to kind of the alcohol market. After Prohibition, it was all about whiskey, vodka, gin, and we quickly then switched to beer, wine, in terms of market share. And I think that's what's going to happen with the rosins, because the rosins are not 90% THC. They're not 95% THC. You really have that experience and that flavor. So we're kind of following the same path as the liquor industry, where I think we're going to have a lot more crafty flavors. We're going to have a lot more products that have less THC, but more flavor and a better product experience in general. I think we're really starting to scratch the surface of that, but I wouldn't be surprised that if in a couple of years we only have products that have maybe 20 or 30% THC for more of that recreational side of things. Obviously, medical is different because a lot of people need more of that. Not to mention that I'm a lightweight with THC, so when I'm using a rosin disposable, I can actually take one puff without going to sleep afterwards.
I'm with you on that. I'm pretty much the same. I'm a one hit kind of guy. I hit it once and relax for a while and sort of see where that takes me. And if it's, you know, if I'm there, then I don't need to keep going at all. I want to ask you another question, which I spoke with Gretchen about it earlier. So she sort of put a little bug in my ear, which was this goes back to your expertise, Arnaud, which is about testing. And I've always thought this was a little bit funny about where we can talk about hemp just for a second, just because everyone sort of knows the 0.3% THC metric. Everybody knows that sort of line. But what I think a lot of people don't know is where during the process that gets tested, right? It's not tested on the final product. It's tested somewhere in the middle of production. And once you pass that 0.3% in the middle, then you keep going through the product, and the THC level will change up and down during different facets of the process, right? Well, I think it's similar with vape products, right? Which is that they test the products in the cartridge, but not necessarily the vape that comes out and the vape that actually goes into your body. So I would love to hear just a few thoughts, and I want to be respectful of your time. We've been talking a while already, and you've been amazingly generous so far. But if you wouldn't mind just sharing just a few of your thoughts about testing the vape itself, testing the vapor.
Oh, definitely. So you're correct in saying that as of today, people are testing the oil inside. The problem is, I spoke about the vaping equation and the mathematical model of vaporization. It goes through a state change. It turns from an oil to an aerosolized oil. And that state change is really dependent on the temperature that you're heating it at. So the product that comes out, what we're actually inhaling when we're pulling on these, is going to be a total different product than what's inside. So when you understand that concept, you quickly realize that, yeah, why are we testing what's inside? It's not like we're drinking this, or no, we got to test what comes out of it. And that's actually what Colorado has done with making emissions testing mandatory. Now, there are a lot more things we need to test for, and there's a lot of research that is still needed on the different cannabinoids and their degradants. And that's really, really important research to do when moving forward. But also not reinventing the wheel. We already know a lot of harmful components. We already have methodologies and protocols to test for those components. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And I think the cannabis industry is great with this, but sometimes is trying to overhaul systems that already work. So using everything we do in nicotine vaping, I think is very, very important to start doing all of this emissions research. But you can't do emissions research if you don't have a standard puffing regime. A standard puffing regime is, for instance, if I take a puff for 1 second of this, it's going to be totally different than if I take a 3-second puff, because the temperature will have changed. There'll be more degradants after a 3-second puff, and the product will, the whole experience will be totally different. So we've actually put together a white paper in collaboration with LabStat about what we call, it's the vaping survey. We surveyed 1,000 Canadians, 1,000 Americans, all across the countries to really understand what the vaping profile is. And we quickly realized that people who use cannabis are inhaling anywhere between 85 milliliters to 120 milliliters of vapor, whereas people who use nicotine vaping are inhaling an average of 55 milliliters. So we actually developed a cannabis intense vaping regime to specifically do that research. Now that we have this regime, we can start doing some of that research on the vapor that comes out. So again, testing is in its infancy. And I think over time, as some consolidation happens, and as some of these labs that are used to doing vaping testing for nicotine come online and get THC testing licenses, we're going to start seeing the level of detail that we can get in any kind of these testing regimes a lot better moving forward. But definitely, consumer safety is the most important thing here. Sometimes I say this all the time, but sometimes my investors always ask me, why are you giving away so much information? Why are you saying this? We need to keep this in-house. And I'm like, no, because if we keep this in-house and these products get banned like nicotine vaping, we're going to be screwed as an industry moving forward. Our business won't exist anymore. So we need to be on the forefront of that. And kind of like Europe is on nicotine vaping. Being a French citizen, I get reimbursed by Social Security because I switched from smoking to vaping. Every year I get 65 euros to buy new gear. And in the US, vaping is still demonized. So it's
No,
really
I
important.
I think you might say that nicotine is demonized in the United States, and I think that they've probably earned the reputation. I think
that's another big point. You see, nicotine. Do you know that if you look at the nicotine itself, pure nicotine is less addictive and less toxic than caffeine. But the nicotine you get with all the additives added in tobacco, it dynamite. And so
right.
What we have in nicotine vaping is pure nicotine. It's not that nicotine with all the other added ammonia and other products that you have in tobacco. And I think
right.
That's what the general public believes. It's cigarettes are dangerous, nicotine is dangerous. Well, no, nicotine is used to treat ulcers. Nicotine is not the most dangerous product out there. It's the tobacco and the combustion that happens that's really, really dangerous.
It's very hard to separate the tobacco companies
Yep.
from the nicotine product, which is really what they were trying to deliver in the first place.
That's true. And
Nicotine itself. No, I just and believe me, I'm a novice, so I'm not an expert in this at all. But my father was a big smoker. He died very young, so I've got a sort of a personal stake in it, a personal belief system about the nicotine companies, not necessarily nicotine product as as an evil itself, but the companies that were behind it. They definitely
and
I didn't do themselves favors, I think.
I totally agree with you. That's the reason why I accepted my nomination as chairman of ISO standards. So it wouldn't be someone from one of those big tobacco companies that would handle that.
It's funny. I did a thing similar to you, as a matter of fact, and this had to do with a symbol that was going to be used for a universal symbol for cannabis for all products worldwide. And I got wind of what they were thinking of approving, and I volunteered for the committee to make sure that I got on the inside. So that I could have more influence there rather than being on the outside, sort of throwing rocks at the window. I volunteered to be on the inside of the standards, a different standards group than you're in. This one is called AS
37. I'm a member of that as well.
Did you hear my tirade about the symbol? I don't want to go into it here, but
yes, I did. That's why I couldn't put back the name. But now that you say it, yes, I totally agree.
Oh my goodness, that was a big day.
It was a good speech.
Thank you. That's very funny. I'm so surprised it was you. I was very worried that I had insulted the Canadians beyond my ability to ever speak with them again. But anyway, we got it done. We're in a good place now.
No, it's good. And Montana already adopted it, and we got to get other states to start adopting this universal symbol. Very selfishly, from a production standpoint, and for our clients, if they're in multiple states, they have different SKUs. In this case, we can have just one SKU with that universal symbol.
I think it's a very important thing that they were doing, and that's another reason why I really felt like I needed to jump in there, because I felt like it really was essential. It really made a lot of sense.
Agreed.
Well, both Arnaud and Seth, I want to thank you very much for taking so much time. I know you've got a lot to do, even just in describing your supply chain and redundancy and all that you've described here today. I'm sure that your day is packed with work and attention to that process alone, plus all the others. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking time to talk with us here today. And as I mentioned, and this just casually again, as I mentioned, we will handle the intro and the outro, and you guys can go now and go do your thing. But I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your experience, your passion, and your personal involvement, Seth, in the industry as well. I mean, we're so grateful to have people like you in the business, and Arnaud, of course, person with your expertise and experience. We couldn't be better served than to have people like you here in our industry as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. It was an honor. And again, I think I can speak for both Seth and myself here. If it comes to educating people, you can have us anytime, and we'll take the time to do it correctly, because it's the most important thing for the longevity and sustainability of our industry.
Very good. I'd be so happy to have you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much, guys. I want to say thank you. Special thanks to Arnaud Dumas de Rauly and Seth Dean of the Blinc Group. And thank you for joining us today. I want to ask you to like, share, and subscribe our interviews. Thank the folks at Pro Cannabis Media for helping out. That's Jimmy Young and Dan French. And this is Christopher Smith, publisher of the American Cannabis Report.